So let's get started. So yesterday we talked about the other elements in a report like sorting, filter, prompts, sharing a report. And today we'll talk a little bit more about RAS reports, which is called as a report as a service. If you don't have it in your notes, please write it down. It's called RAS, RAAS. It's called as report as a service. And what does that mean? Report as a service means that you enable a report as a RAS report so that it can be used for outbound integrations. Outbound integration means exporting that particular data of the report to a third-party system or anything outside Workday. That's what export means in general. You're sending something out, you're exporting something. In this case, you're exporting the data of the output of the report. So to enable this report as a RAS report, you have to go to the advanced section and enable it as a web service. Click OK. It automatically gives you an API version and namespace. Now, once you save this, probably we'll have to get rid of some prompts because that is what gives the errors. Okay, so it's okay. Now, what happens after making this as a RAS report is you get all these, once it opens up, you'd see an option here, web service. If you look at the URLs, you get all these options, which means like you can literally click on this option. It will take you to a new page where you will have a link. Let's say the third-party system needs the data in a CSV format. So you click on that, it gives you this link. You have to share this link with the third-party user. And they will have a username and a password to sign in, and that is how they'll be able to download the report. Likewise, if you want to give them JSON format, Google data, RSS feed in XST or XML format, all these different formats, but this is more on the integration side. But you should know that there are something called as RAS reports, which will be used in your EIBs for outbound integrations. The reason I'm showing you this is because we will use this in one of our integration demo today. Okay, so just have it in your notes. There's something called as RAS reports. Okay, now coming back to our report, which we did yesterday, you're familiar with all of this. Now we'll move on to the next topic, which is your enterprise interface builders. Now, EIBs are your three-step process. Your source, basically your get data, your transformation, and delivery. It's a three-step process. Okay. And EIBs are nothing but business processes in the backend run as an API. API is your application programming interface, which is nothing but a piece of code which is an interface between your system and the third-party user. Not going too technical on it, you can just understand it. It's a mediator between your third party and the Workday system. Now, the task that we use to create an EIB is create EIB, as simple as that. This is the task that we use here. And if you go to the description, it says start creating your EIB by giving it a name and selecting its direction. Outbound EIBs export data from Workday to external systems. So this is about the outbound EIBs. It export data. And then inbound EIBs, they import data from external systems to Workday. Okay. Now, it's like you are, let's say your company is a product company and your product is a software. Okay. Now, when some other company comes out, reaches out to you and want to use your software, you do customization based on the requirements of that company. That customization is nothing but the transformation that you are doing so that the third-party company understand what the system is doing. Likewise, in any EIB, whether it's an inbound or an outbound, there is a source of data. After the source, there is a transformation of that data in the format that the destination whether it's a third-party vendor, whether it's an existing system, understand, and then it's delivered to that system. So we'll work with an inbound EIB first. And again, like everywhere in the system, you should follow a naming convention. So I'll use EIB underscore inbound underscore. Let's say we give it new hire. We'll do a business title change. As you can see here, it's a 3-step process. You have a get data. You don't have to do anything in the general settings. Get data, that's the first step where you will provide the source from where you are getting that file. Now, when we talk about inbound EIBs, inbound means importing data. Now, where do you import it from? Importing data means you are making changes to the existing data within the Workday system. For example, you have to give one-time payment to 20 employees because of their exceptional work they did in the last quarter. Would you go about doing that manually to each and every employee? No. You will do a one-time payment EIB. So basically, if it was just 1 or 2 employees, you could have done it manually. You go to the worker profile, initiate the one-time payment process, go through the approvals, and that's done. But if you have to do it for 20 or more than 20 employees, that needs an EIB. So in this case, we'll use an example of business process. We'll change the business title, not the business process. We'll change the business title of a few employees, few new hires in the system. Okay, and the data source will be a file attached. Basically, we'll attach a file, though there are other ways. Like we can pull a file from a Google Drive if you have that in the right format. Is it from an SFTP server or some Amazon storage? We can pull it from there. So in the get data part, you have a data source, and the best way is to attach a file at launch. Basically, this file will be in a format which the Workday system understands. Okay, and then the only thing you have to do is define the web service operation. This is nothing but your business process that you want to work with. In our case is the business title change or change business title, which is nothing but a business process in the backend. Transformation, that's all you have to do in get data. Now, when you come to the transformation, you will be given a template. There's no other option here. So inbound EIBs are the easiest, are the simplest, at least to start with. And what this does, it creates a template, like a very consolidated Excel sheet, which you have to populate with the new information. And this particular template is then we attach in your EIB. That's why in the get data, we have it attach file at launch. Where is that file coming from? It's from this template model. And what's the delivery? Delivery, where is the delivery? Delivery is at your Workday system. Okay, so the inbound EIB is why I'm saying is the easiest, because you don't have to change any of the option. The only thing you have to do is in the get data function, you have to add in the web service operation. Okay, now once you do that, just go ahead, move to the next steps without even looking at anything and click OK. Now, once you do this, it creates your integration system. Your EIB business title change Velvet is now an integration system. Okay, you will use this to create a template. By going on the related actions, go to the template model and generate a spreadsheet template. You can do it in 2 formats. If you understand XML, you can do it in that. XLSS is nothing but your Excel. So you confirm it, you click submit, and in a matter of seconds, you will have a template ready with you. It depends upon if you're doing an inbound EIB, you have to put that information in this template, which will be generated right now, because that is the only template that the Workday system understands. Whether it's XML or Excel, like I'll show you the template. When creating a template, should not take more than 30 seconds. Let me see if we have an existing template here. One usually goes for creation of the template, which there are some sub processes that gets triggered. So you always see on the top as a parent process. It's basically the same thing. On the front end, the user only sees the parent process. You can see the processing time like 17 seconds, 18 seconds. There are some with 47 minutes. But that's a payroll one, so that makes sense. It should not take this long. See, there are child processes that run in the backend, which are also presented as parent process in the front end. So let's try it one more time. But we'll have to navigate to our integration system that we created. So we run integration events report, and we type in the name that we have. This one gets done quickly. In the meantime, let's try to create another EIB. Let's do it for, so we added change of template here. Let's see if this will take time. Another benefit of EIBs is it bypasses the approval. So let's say you have these bonuses, and let's say if you give them one by one within the system by going to the worker profile, initiating the process, let's say there's a approval process, but if you do it through an EIB, you can bypass that approval. That's another benefit, because what's the benefit of using a bulk process if you have to wait for the approvals? Oh, finally. So we have this in the output file. You'll get something like this: change business title with the latest version of the API. It's downloaded here, and we open that. You definitely need it here, but you won't have troubles here because you're logging into the remote Windows machine. Now, this is the overview page where you have a listing of the business, the process that you can see here, business process. That's change business title. You have to define a processing instruction. This is where you define whether you want manual processing or automatic. Automatic processing means it will bypass the approvals. Manual processing means it will consider the approvals. You won't use the other two options that are no longer beneficial, but 99% we use automatic processing so that things get processed quickly and it goes to the next step. Right. Now the next is discard on it. Now we don't need that. Processing comments. This is like an open-ended text field. Let's say we added velvet change business title. So we make changes to 5 or 10 or 50 different employees. Everyone will have this in the comment. Okay. Now next comes your actual tab where you have to populate the information. The first row is always the API version, or basically your business process name. The second row are the area headers. You can see here area, and these are different headers like all, change business title. And each area header has some restrictions to the different columns that they have. Like this area header all, which is common to all the templates, will have some restrictions here. Like these, it has 3 fields, 3 columns. 2 of them are required and 1 is optional. So if you're using this header, that means you'll have to populate at least column B and C, and you can skip column D. Same way, if you're using change business title header, you'll have to in this case, you'll have to populate both. Now, if I look at the other EIB, let's say if this gets done here, yeah, I'll show you a change of EIB and then you'll understand more what the header means, because that's a very, very lengthy business EIB. Okay, so this is for change job. I'm just using this for reference. You can see here within change job, you have a plethora of different business processes that gets triggered, about like 27 more. But it is not the case like you need all of them at that moment. Let's say you're doing a change job plus a one-time payment. So you will only populate information in the change job tab and in the one-time payment tab. You don't have to populate information anywhere else. Okay. And in that case, you'll only populate the information for these two. Now, talking about the area headers, you can see this is a very big EIB. You can see a ton of different columns with their area headers. Now, again, you can see the all area header, which is always there, which we all use. And if you're using this, you populate the required columns, not the optional one. Now, let's say if you don't want this change job details, but want this change job job details data all. So in this case, all of these are optional. Right, so you don't need to populate them. Let's say if you're looking at another header here, which is position external ID data. So if any of the columns in this header, like this header has two columns here. So this header has AQ and AR under the belt. So one of them is required and optional. So if you need to use this, so you need external ID, you have to populate this column, you can skip. So eventually the bottom line is populate the required ones and not the optional ones, but in the area headers that you need it for. Then comes the format. The format is based on the fields that you're using. So let's say this is a spreadsheet key. This is the unique ID. And this column B is always there in all the data templates with a spreadsheet key. This has to be unique, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It can go up to as many numbers as you want. There's no limit to it, because at the end of the day, it's an Excel sheet. And though these are numbers, but these are taken as text format. Then comes your worker field. Now you can see here, it says contingent worker ID, but there's a small drop down here, which allows you to change that. Not every field will have that. In our case, we are not working with contingent workers. We are working with standard employees. So we'll change that. And this is optional, so we don't even have to worry about it. But in this case, we have to populate the date when we want to make that change in this format, that is year, month, and date. And then the text format of what the proposed business title is. Now, where do I get this information? I get this information from the report. This is the problem in the system here. Once you work with EIBs, it just gets stuck. This was for change job. So now what I'll do is I'll run my Velvet report for new hires to get that data. But we don't have the business title field here, so let me add that first. So you have your business title here. And I'll shorten the length of like the volume of the report by changing the prompt values here. So instead of the 3 months, I'll only just, do it in the month of August, let's say. Right, so 01 to 3108. Okay, so this works. Now, as you can see here, we have these 4 employees with their employee IDs, and they have these business titles. So we'll change them all to Workday Systems Analyst. So we have these employee IDs. This is what we'll copy from here. We'll copy here, we'll put it to our other sheet. Irish. Yeah. We'll put that. And then we'll put the date, okay, and we'll put the title as Workday Systems Analyst. Just put Velvet in brackets just for reference, and we'll copy paste that. So now our EIB is ready. We'll use this EIB back into our integration system that we have, which is this one. You will get errors in case, like when we were doing it, if I put a different date format, things like that. So if these spreadsheet templates are very, so if you put a different date format, yeah, that is when you'll get an error, because you're not following the format that is defined in that template. So now we'll go back to our EIB now. Now, since we had, the first thing we did is at the get data point, we had that attach file at launch. Why? Because this is that spreadsheet template which we'll now attach it in our integration system. So we'll go to this integration option. We have launch and schedule. We are now launching our integration. You can also schedule it for advance, like for future dates, like daily, weekly, monthly, or you can have a custom recurrence as well. Then you click OK. And this is where you have your integration attachment. This is where you will attach that file which we just created using the create integration attachment. Select here, and this is the, we did change then. Yeah, this is the one, change business title. This is the file that we used. Click OK. And nothing else to do except for this validate only mode. Now, validate only mode, what it does is it checks for any errors in the formatting of the data that you have, like date formats, employee IDs, or even the spreadsheet key if that's not in the right order. So enabling this, think of running the EIB in a bubble which tells you all the errors so that you can go back, fix it, and then run it again. Make sure your EIB is error-free. Okay, but if it is successful, that does not mean that the changes are effective. Okay, this is validate only mode. It's like running in a black box environment to make sure there are no errors in it. And this is always a good practice to enable this. I don't know how much time this will take. Oh, it's good progress. So validate only mode, it's like, you're running in a black box environment to make sure there are no errors in the data that you have entered in the template. Again, it is taking more time than usual. Okay. So you can see here, it's completed. There are no errors. If you would have any errors, you will see just below the status what those errors are. But even if I go back to my report, I run it again with that same date range, it still shows me the old business title because we did not commit the data yet. We only tested it in sandbox that, okay, it's working as expected. Now what we do is we relaunch it through this parent event. Again, integration event, and you will have this relaunch option. So you relaunch it. Since this file worked for us, no changes required, we'll keep it as is. The only thing we'll do is we'll deselect this. We'll disable this option so that we can make changes to the data. Once we click OK, it runs the integration again. Let's refresh and see where it is. Okay, now it says completed. Now let's go back and look at our report. Once again, there you go. So the benefit of reports here is, again, to get the data from the system which you want to update, and then use the same reports to validate those data. And see, EIBs are very, very critical. If you are giving it to someone who's completely new to the team, chances are high that they will receive errors. So it is always has to be done under the supervision of someone. And if you say you have 1,000 of record, at once you can only resend 500 records. That's the limit of it. Now, before I actually rescind it, you can see here, let's say if I navigate to one of this employee here, if I go to their worker history, you can see there's a title change. And that title change, if you look at the process, you see something like this, external load, which means it is done through an EIB. In the comment section, this is what we added, Velvet change business title. So that is how it is looked into. Now, if I rescind this, you select all here first. It selects it. And a lot of time, if it's 1,000 of record, obviously you can do 500 at a time, but it's difficult to find out which out of 500 are correct. So it's always better to do another EIB than do a rescind. We suppress the notifications. Please don't do it yourself. It might be a red flag. So now if I go back to this employee in worker history, you would say the title change was rescinded. It was done here and then it was rescinded. You can see the comment that came automatically. This business process was rescinded from the mass rescind business process. And if I go back running my report again for the data range, though they are back because it's a small data set, but if it's a bigger data set, that is when it's